it is my immense pleasure to invite Rebecca Clouâtre to the stage.
Hi, everyone. Hi. So warm. Oh my gosh. So nice. I'm just trying to find the right place for this mic. Hi, everyone. I'm really excited to do this. I want to start by saying thank you for coming and listening. This is such a great community, and I've known Izzy since really the beginning of ODC, as she mentioned. So really, way back during the pandemic, which is kind of hard to believe. So this is really meaningful and special. And of course, thank you to the whole ODC team. You guys are awesome. So when I think about the word flow, I think about more than just my period. Thank you for the laughter. And I had to, it was right there. But we also need to talk more openly and honestly about menstruation. Let's just be honest. But in all seriousness, I realized when preparing this talk that the word flow can be thought of in two related but slightly different ways. First, flow can mean a smooth movement of something, perhaps something liquid. There's a sense of an ease of movement. But what strikes me is that flow is also associated with a substance that is hard to grasp. It is not solidified. It's something elusive, like water. And water makes me think of vitality and aliveness. All living things, as we know it, need water. In fact, this is what scientists look for as one of the most promising signs of life when they're exploring the universe. Another way to think about flow is more psychological, a mental state in which a person is fully immersed in an activity. This is characterized by energized focus, full involvement, and perhaps most importantly, enjoyment and play. I've experienced these feelings while creating artwork many times, and it's the best. It makes me feel alive. In this state, I also feel connected to myself and to my surroundings. I am present. This is where the really good stuff happens, and I feel as if I am doing something with my whole self. So what does this look like for me specifically as a visual artist? How do I tap into this state of flow? The act of flowing also makes me think of a journey and inevitable peaks and valleys. It also makes me think of formative moments. I started to recall times in my life when I felt the most energized and like my true self. I want to start with childhood because when we're kids, it's easier and simpler to recognize the things that make you feel alive or bring you enjoyment. Like a true Pisces, who is sensitive and creative and liked to make crafts and read, I was a kid that you could always find in water. I loved swimming and grew up in North Bay, Ontario, which has 2 natural lakes. I have a lot of fond memories by the water, and to this day, it immediately calms me. I recently asked my parents to describe to me what I was like as a kid, and specifically if they had any inklings that I would eventually pursue something creative. My mom reminded me that I had many collections of things, and I had very clear ideas about how I wanted to display these things. My room was maximalist, with countless collections, unsurprisingly, right? My room was maximalist, with countless collections, including cat figurines, Polly Pockets, lip smackers, 90s kids, I see you, rocks, stamps. My mom also said that I liked tiny, intricate things with a lot of detail. Definitely some foreshadowing happening here. Fast forwarding a bit, I went through different phases as my collections came and went, and I started to scrapbook with the many magazines and other paper things I gathered. This was mostly during my teenage years. I also remember feeling really drawn to paper as a medium, and this love and fascination holds to this day. I want to spend a minute talking about formative moments because I think if we're talking about flow and energy, it's useful to think back on moments in life when you felt especially moved by something or you noticed a shift in something like perspective or taste. There are many formative moments I can talk about, and they can arrive in many shapes. but the one I will mention here has to do with my relationship with art. On a high school trip, I saw this incredible 3-panel painting called The Garden of Earthly Delights by Hieronymus Bosch. I'm not religious, but I swear I had a religious-like experience. I was instantly drawn in by the detail and the ahead of its time surrealism and this messy but somehow eloquent balance of light and dark and life and death. I also loved that you could look at it multiple times and see something new every time. I was mesmerized. This was one of the first times I was truly moved by a piece of artwork, and something in me changed. I realized how powerful art can be. I think it's important to pay attention to these moments, especially in a time like today, when we are constantly being influenced and told what to like through algorithms and capitalism. I try to pay attention and notice the things that really burn a fire in my belly, the things that resonate deeply. By the time I got to university, I was studying English literature and art history with the hopes of either working in a gallery or a museum. I remember when I took my first art history class and I fell completely in love. I just couldn't get enough. I was inspired by so much of the art that I studied, and my relationship with this long and interesting visual history deepened significantly. In 2015, I graduated from Carleton University with a master's in art history and curatorial studies. It was a lot of school and a lot of working part-time jobs to pay for school, but I have really fond memories of those years. My trajectory seemed to be going up. I had opportunities to do curatorial internships at really great places like the National Gallery of Canada and the Philadelphia Museum of Art. Then, not long after I graduated, and after what seemed like a flurry of activity, I suddenly found myself without a job. Fuck. So I was quickly faced with the harsh realities of what the cultural workforce is like, which unfortunately can include a lot of unpredictability and toxicity. Anyone who has worked in the arts knows this. I found myself in a position that I had grown unfamiliar with, stagnation, and an unclear idea about how to move forward. For a hot minute, I was spending most of my days at home looking through endless job ads and thinking to myself, what the hell have I done? Why did I pick a career that is famous for being fickle, insecure, and undervalued? I could feel a fog creeping in and a sense that I was motionless in the dark. And then I received a knock on my door. I opened it, and there was Jan. Right? We're wearing the same thing. Now, before I go any further, I want to take a moment to say that I will be talking about depression. And the way that I've chosen to talk about it is through humor. Personally, this has been one of the ways that I cope. But I want to state clearly now that mental health is not a laughing or a trivial matter, and I take it very seriously. So, Jan. Even just her name sounds irritating, and apologies if there's any Jans in the room. I had a feeling that I had met Jan before, but I didn't know her name then, and she looked eerily like me. She waltzed into my house and started taking up so much space and consuming everything. When she wanted to be fed, I fed her. I fed her self-doubt. I fed her negativity, and I fed her fear, and she couldn't get enough. Jan liked to suck up all the energy in the room. She loved being inactive and hated movement. She definitely did not like swimming. Jan stayed close to me for a while. My husband, Derek, who I'm not going to make eye contact with because I'm going to start crying, he's supporting me here tonight, was very patient and understanding when it came to Jan. But I know how good to start crying anyway. It's fine. It's fine. Woo, yeah. emotions. Okay. Thank you. But I know he didn't like to see her take over my life. Whew. Okay. For a few months, the job search seemed hopeless. Then, after many days and nights sitting on the couch with Jan, not really doing much, and continually rehashing the same negative thoughts over and over, I started to feel an urge to be creative again. I hadn't made anything with my hands in years. I'd just been studying the things that others had made. So I decided to start a project. I knew I wanted to make something with paper and use some of the materials that were lying around collecting dust. Jan told me not to. She said it wasn't worth my time, and she made her stance very clear. What was I going to make anyway? This does not matter. It was difficult, but I tried not to listen to Jan, and in mid-January 2017, I challenged myself to create one mini paper collage a day for 150 days and post every single one on Instagram. I noticed how dedicating time to this project slowly improved my mood. And as I inched closer to the light, Jan seemed to move further and further away. This project seemed manageable, bite-sized morsels of creativity that I could fit into my daily schedule. The collages measured about 3 by 4 inches and included a lot of different types of imagery. I increasingly became more energized, focused, and excited. And it was then I realized I had successfully entered a state of flow. I explored different styles of collage within the challenge to see what I liked, and eventually started to notice that I was drawn to nature. I liked images that felt lively, rich in variation, and had elements that were universally relatable. I felt a desire and need to create intricate, whimsical worlds that I could escape into. I also liked using a lot of blank or negative space. And collaging every day meant that I was practicing cutting every day and testing different adhesives. I liked the idea of breathing new life into old or forgotten images and finding ways to recycle materials. The process of hunting and gathering felt resourceful and thrilling. I also found a large community of other collage artists online. I would recommend this type of project to anyone who is feeling stuck. As I look back and reflect, I really see how it benefited me in so many unforeseen ways. In addition to mental health benefits, this project came from a place of personal healing and a deep need to explore and satisfy my curiosities. I hadn't realized just how strong those needs were, and I think curiosity is another essential element when we are talking about flow. Curiosity is kind of the opposite of fear, and it is along the path to enjoyment. I was exercising my creative muscles every day, which was helpful, especially on the days when I didn't feel like making anything, because I thought, even if what I make ends up being shit, and there will always be shit, at the very least, I'm keeping that muscle warm. There are, of course, a variety of things I needed to do to keep Jan at bay, but I really felt that one of the most effective ways was forcing myself to do the thing that she was telling me not to do. I found that as soon as I started to move again, that slight perspective shift was massive. So I'm nearing the end of the project, and I'm starting to find my style, and then something really unexpected happens. Danielle Crissa, who runs the popular art blog The Jealous Curator, posts about my project on her website and Instagram. Suddenly, my followers went way up, and people I didn't know started asking if I was selling artwork. I had a full-on existential crisis. I'm like, am I an artist now? My plan was never to be an artist, and what makes someone an artist anyway? This is a hard question, and it took me a long time to find an answer that suited me, but eventually I gave in. The 150 Days project effectively kickstarted my entire art practice, and I've never looked back. I decided to put my whole self into becoming a real artist, whatever that means. And I've had some great opportunities. I continually sold work through my online shop and at art festivals, boutiques, and galleries. I've been part of group exhibitions. I did commercial work where I made album cover designs, and I've had my collages featured in publications. I also continue to organize and host art workshops and do custom pieces for clients. One of my proudest moments was being asked to be featured in a CBC Arts short film for a series called Paper Cuts. It was a lot of hustling, but I loved everything I was doing, and I wanted more. I wanted to experience it all, and I wanted to keep progressing. I really felt that I'd found my stride in the thing that I was meant to be doing. Then, something major happened. She's adorable, I know. I know that's you, Alexa. Enter Desiree. It's my favorite video, and I love the at the end. It's okay. We are all made of water. It's about 60% of the stuff that make up our bodies, but newborn babies are about 75 to 80% water, the highest percentage we experience in our human lives. Des was full of life, energy, joy, curiosity, and she was so alive and brought an entirely new dynamic to our quiet existence. The first year was a huge transition, but I was enjoying motherhood. I was tired and sore, but I remember laughing a lot, and I would do pretty much anything to make her laugh. I took planned time off work, and Derek was then working for the government and took 10 months off with me. We were extremely lucky to experience the majority of that first year together, tackling this new and exciting realm of parenthood. I'm forever grateful for this precious time. It's true what people say, that time changes when you have kids. That first year flew by, and then by the time that Derek had to go back to work, the COVID-19 pandemic hit. All I had envisioned for the remainder of my maternity leave had to change. This is when things started to get really tough. Derek wasn't enjoying his work anymore. My daily reality became isolating, and I wasn't spending enough time on my artwork. My mother self and my artist self seemed to be at odds with each other. It was really hard to face that motherhood wasn't exactly what I expected it to be, and I thought that I had all the building blocks. I was and still am in a relationship that prioritizes equality. I have a wonderful mother-in-law that was generous and helped with childcare. I couldn't have done it without her, and I'm forever grateful. Still, with all this knowledge and support, nothing can quite prepare you for what the experience of becoming a mother is like. I could feel that fog coming in, and guess who came back? Fucking Jan. And this time, she was more annoying and ferocious than ever. In addition to what she brought before, she brought new, more complicated problems into my house. Mom guilt, for instance, a tendency to compare herself to other artists, intense stress that had multiple negative physiological effects. She had all these wild ideas that were debilitating. You should quit. You are not a good artist. You should get a stable government job. Your body will never bounce back. You are not a good partner. You are not a good mother. Just another moment. Oh. I really appreciate that clapping because it gives me a little energy boost. Okay. It was clear that I needed a stronger, more tailored constellation of things to keep Jan at bay this time. Just gonna. All right. To keep Jan at bay this time, identifying what brought me joy became a lot more nuanced, and this time Jan was here to stay. Along with some other lifestyle changes and finding a really good therapist, I joined 44.4 Mother Artist Collective. Shout out to all of them that are here. There's a good group of them here. Because going through the isolation of the pandemic as a relatively fresh mother is just a recipe for depression. I can't emphasize enough that community is so important and essential. But in addition to these things, I needed a perspective shift. When your world becomes small, perspective is everything. I usually find it really effective to do this through reading. But I was frustrated by what I came across. A lot of the how-to parenting books I read were just not doing it for me. I also wasn't satisfied with the depictions of motherhood I was seeing in the media. These sources didn't have the adequate words to describe what the experience is really like. I never expected motherhood to be easy, but I didn't fully anticipate how much of a transformation it would be. There seemed to be this general societal understanding that motherhood was a sweet concoction of rainbows and bubblegum. And if you described it as anything else other than completely fulfilling, you'd be deemed a bad mom. But what I came to realize was that motherhood is actually more like space. It's beautiful and awe-inspiring, and there's no question that I've experienced some of the happiest and most profound moments of my life as a mother. But it's also limitlessly vast and completely terrifying. Des is a whole universe, and there are probably some things about motherhood that will forever remain unknowable. Thankfully, there's been an explosion in the last few years in art and literature that illustrate real depictions of motherhood, with all of its complexities. Motherhood experiences are just as numerous and varying as all the people that identify as mothers. We always need more voices. I've turned to authors such as Angela Garbes, Dr. Sophie Sprock, Hetty Judah, and Lucy Jones. This is just a small sampling, but they're all fantastic. Dr. Sprock writes about something called the institution of motherhood. Broadly speaking, it's a set of social, cultural, and political structures that influence how we experience motherhood. This is the perspective shift that I needed. It was not really motherhood or Des that called Jan back. It was this institution. It was so important for me to realize this separation. This was another huge formative moment. This gave me the language to describe how I was feeling. This is a relatively new area of research. We're still so behind, and when it comes to sexism and women's rights, we still have so far to go. I mean, you only have to turn on the news to see that. We're only just beginning to understand and explore this universe. Jan loves space too, but she only likes black holes and the cold places in space that light never reaches. Jan likes to dwell on the planets that are void of life, but I needed to look beyond. In the middle of this motherhood transition, a really amazing opportunity came to me. I signed a contract with WKP Kennedy Gallery in North Bay, Ontario, in my hometown, to do my first ever major solo exhibition. I was intimidated, but I knew this was a rare chance to make whatever I wanted in a space where my imagination could run free. And this was a chance to explore the topic of motherhood through my art, which I hadn't really done thoroughly before. It felt scary and vulnerable, but it felt right. I went to work. I wanted to push the boundaries of what my art was and delve into topics that interested me. It was hard to balance everything, but I had a lot of support from friends and family. I was living and breathing my art in a frenzy of intense focus and energy, and I arrived at another, more enlightening state of flow. I made 102 pieces of artwork, composed of 6 series, exploring just some of the themes that motherhood encompasses: history, love, labor, community, medicalization. And I felt that nature imagery, which I had grown so intimate with, was a useful and rich reservoir full of metaphors and symbolism. I wanted to create artwork that felt honest and showed the good and the bad, multiple truths existing simultaneously. Maternal Collections opened on April 21st, 2023. The reception was overwhelming, and the opening was packed. I was interviewed by CBC, and I sold a lot of artwork. It was a success. One of the best pieces of advice I can give an artist is to find ways to put your most genuine self forward. Don't make artwork that you think anyone else or the industry will like. To access that true state of energized flow, you have to be your full self. So, what now? It turns out that I was only just starting to explore the topic of motherhood through my art. I'm currently working on a piece for a group exhibition with 44.4. The opening is April 17th at the City of Ottawa Art Gallery, so you'll all be there, right? This is an experimental artwork using different materials, and it's an extension of some of the themes I was working on for Maternal Collections. It's about our misconceptions about so-called mummy brain. I'm learning about neurology and looking outward, beyond my own limited experiences, to understand what actually happens to women's bodies that Western medicine has historically overlooked. Research, which has become a really important part of my process and harkens back to my art history roots, helps me consistently return to a creative state of flow. I want to leave you with a mental image. Around midday a few weeks ago, my daughter, Des, who is 5 now, can't believe it, was flitting around the house with markers in her hands, no doubt looking for the right materials to make a craft or a drawing. The sun was shining brightly through our back window, onto our kitchen floor. She saw this, immediately dropped everything, stepped with her bare feet into the light, and just started dancing and giggling. Her movements were so natural and fluid, as if she was swimming, and she happens to love swimming. And I thought to myself, this is what life is about. This is joy. This is living in the present. This is the good stuff, and this is the purest state of flow. Kids are a great reminder of this and can teach us adults a lot. I recently opened my first ever art studio outside my house at 60 Camelot, and all my neighbors are here. Hello. I love you all. I feel so fortunate. The space is new, and it has a really nice big window. Coincidentally, the jealous curator, who shared my work way back when I was doing the 150 Days project, shared my work again in her newsletter on the same day, I swear to God, that I started working in my new studio. I can't think of a better omen. Jan hasn't exactly made her presence known at the studio yet, but I know she's lurking somewhere in the shadows. When that day inevitably comes and she shows her face, I will welcome her. I'll take her hand and open up the curtains to let the sun in, and I will encourage her to swim with me in the light. Thank you.